I'm Tim Tuller, candidate for music at St. John's Cathedral. I'm just going to say a couple things about some of the music for this Sunday, June 2nd. Our opening prelude is going to be a movement from a Handel organ concerto, Concerto Number 1 in G minor. It's actually the final movement of this piece. These organ concertos were written by Handel for his own use. And the organs that Handel would have played would not have had any pedals, so it would have been strictly manuals. And these pieces would have been played by Handel with a small string orchestra between movements of his operas and oratorios. Handel would often conduct these from an organ or harpsichord and play the continuo part, which is basically the harmonic underpinning of the whole piece. And then he'd be at the keyboard, and while the singers would take a rest or a break between acts or movements, he would play these little organ concertos with the orchestral players, and they were extremely popular. And so over the centuries, several composers have transcribed these for solo organ. A modern solo organ with pedals can effectively bring out both the orchestra and the original organ parts. And the one that I'll be playing this Sunday was actually transcribed by the great 20th century French organist Marcel Dupré. He transcribed a great number of Handel's organ concertos for solo organ, and they're very, very effective. This particular movement is basically a set of variations. A tune, it starts out quiet and it gradually builds and builds and builds over the course of about 5 minutes. A very effective and fun piece to play. Our offertory anthem this Sunday is the well-known Panis Angelicus by the 19th century Belgian organist and composer César Franck. Although he was Belgian by birth, he spent most of his life in Paris and France, and so France likes to claim him, so he's sometimes considered a French organist, but he was Belgian by birth. And Panis Angelicus was originally for vocal duet, but it's been transcribed for every imaginable arrangement of voice and instruments. And the arrangement we'll be doing this week actually is for tenor solo and choir. So tenor solo takes one part and the choir would take the part of the second voice. And it's a very effective piece. Its enduring popularity has to do with it's one of the most absolutely memorable melodies ever written by anybody. And so it's one of Franck's most popular pieces. Our postlude this Sunday is the final movement of the first organ symphony of the 20th century French composer Louis Vierne. Louis Vierne is one of the most important figures in really ever in the history of organ music. He was the organist at Notre Dame in Paris for several decades in the early 20th century. He wrote 6 symphonies for organ in which he attempted to take the effect of an entire symphony orchestra and transfer it to the organ. He had been bequeathed this tradition by composers such as Charles-Marie Widor and César Franck, Alexandre Guilmant, and some others. And he was in direct line to these composers. And he really took the art form and perfected it in many ways. Over the course of about 35 or so years, he wrote 6 organ symphonies. And as they continued, they tended to get more challenging for both the performer and the listener. You'd never imagine that the composer who wrote the first organ symphony was the same one who wrote the 6th organ symphony. And probably for that reason, generally speaking, his earlier works are more popular and well known. They're definitely more accessible for performers and listeners. And the final movement of the first organ symphony is almost certainly Vierne's most well-known and popular piece. It takes the form of a French organ toccata, which, similar to the famous organ toccata by Widor in his 5th organ symphony, it consists of a thundering melody played in the pedals against rapid manual figurations. It's a really incredible outburst of exuberant joy, and it's very, very popular with audiences and organists alike. I hope you enjoy the music this Sunday.